Welcome to What's the Finish, our weekly podcast where we talk to experts and individuals just like you to discuss not only the flavors and finishes of spirits and foods, but also all the flavors life has to offer, along with the magnificent finishes they bring. So join our host, David Afariat, as he asks the question, what's the finish?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of What's the Finish? This is our podcast where we talk about the flavors and the finishes of spirits and wine and food, along with the magnificent moments that they bring. Today, I have got a special guest, and I'm delighted to welcome a very unique individual who's a sommelier and a native of London town. Please welcome Magda Rokosh, who joins us. Hi, Magda. How are you?
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's a pleasure to connect with you and talk a little bit about these flavors and these moments where these flavors are enjoyed and the moments that are made better by them. As we mentioned, you're a sommelier in London. How long have you had your sommelier certificate, and how long have you been rooted in London?
So in London, I have been now for almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I got my certification, a sommelier certification. Oh, let me count the years. It must be about 7 years, maybe 6.5. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. So 7 years of educating and educating others, educating yourself. Would you say that the much of what you learned to become a sommelier you have built on, or has the world changed so much that talk a little bit about how you've gone? That's a long period of time that you've been a sommelier. How do you keep sharp with maintaining, all that learning, keeping it sharp?
Yeah. I mean, so I got my certification as a sommelier about 7 years ago, but I haven't consistently been in the industry. For the first 3 years of the 7 years of having been certified as sommelier, I have worked intensely in the industry, in a high-end restaurant in London, and I've learned so much about wine, and this is where my passion for wine really began as well. And how I kept sharp then was to always attend wine tastings. I think I would attend a few tastings in the month when there was the season for it. But otherwise, at least once a month, we would have tastings organized outside work. We would also organize some tastings in the restaurant, not just for our sommelier team, but also for the team of waiters and front of house that were also in touch with customers and the guests to train them and kind of help them understand where the wine why wine is so important with your meal, and how people can really enjoy and have a better experience because they get a good wine, not better wine, but just the right wine. So yeah.
Yeah, no. So take me right to that moment. So I'm one of the waitstaff, and I know that there's a sommelier team. So if I'm coming to a table and there's some questions and I don't know, it's like, well, okay, I'll bring the sommelier. But if I'm really trying to, solve, it's such a dance. I love that we're talking about this. So we're at the table at a restaurant. In my mind, it's often, even in the most finest dining, environments, people are there for an occasion. And how you interact with them is critical. You don't want to overdo it because they're there for a celebration or they're there for some kind of event, whether it's just cementing a relationship, beginning one, ending one, not really ending one, but let's say beginning one or memorializing one on an anniversary or it's just a night out. It just doesn't matter. There's an agenda. And there isn't a lot of time to either be educated at times. It's just enough time to let's set the menu. Let's have what we're going to have. Okay, let's pick a wine, and then, back to where we need to be for why we're here. Do you find, I go back to the questions you were saying, why is it important? And what would you tell the waiter, the wait staff interacting with them about? It can't keep all the wines important. So what is it about what they're ordering and what they might pair that you train them to do?
Well, it's definitely something for them to read as the customer, their behavior. Do they want the help, or is someone, like, reading the guest is really important. That's the first step, because then if you advise them on a wine and they weren't ready for the advice, they're not going to go for it, and their experience is going to be now affected because there was disconnect there. So that's part of it for sure. But the other part is, something that we would teach them is something really foundational, like, you pair white wine with light starters and fish dishes, and then you pair red wine with red meat, and maybe lighter red wine with bird, with chicken. So it's also depending on the customer's, on the guest's preference, but this is where they can read into it. When there was a guest who just wanted to order a glass of wine, you don't need to grab a sommelier. So this is something where we would train people front of house to kind of deal on their own, but at the same time provide the customer service that was necessary, so, and was absolutely needed in these circumstances, because it was a high-end restaurant. So, well, it still is. I'm just not there anymore. But it's a great place to be, and staff is really well trained. And coming back to your question is, white, red wine, sweet wine for desserts, etc. But they would also be aware of, how does tannins affect taste of the food, and what is tannins in wine. And we would, tell them about acidity of wine and how to sense the acidity and what not to pair it with. Like, definitely never propose a glass of acidic Riesling with burrata. You don't want acidity and dairy to clash, and it's going to be an awful taste in the mouth. So having that kind of those kind of conversations with the staff, it not only kind of made them aware that, it's not just wine, it's not just booze. It's something to complement the meal, and it kind of complement it in a really, really great way.
Yeah, I think that's so true. It's like a seasoning. So if you understand what the sauce is, you understand even beyond what the protein is. If you understand what the sauce is and you match to that, yes, if you had to fall back on some hard fast rules and this was day one, then yes, it's red meat and red wines and white wines with fish. But more, you could have a tuna in a rich tomato kind of sauce and say, this might pair well with a red. You might have champagne that you could even put in with a steak that you were trying to cleanse the palate for, and really, whatever you want to play with, the acidity that you mentioned. What I'm even more intrigued though is like how you read the patrons at the table, to figure out, like, is this the right time? Isn't. If they're engaged and enthralled, and like, there are moonbeams coming from each other's eyes, and like you can hear heartstrings. It's like, all right, lay back a little bit, play second fiddle. But if they were on their phones, just opposite each other in their own worlds, but it's like, maybe this is an opportunity to break up the ice here, and let's go through, let me be your guide here and let's talk more. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And if you have any particular story about any kind of interaction like that, like the most interesting, table that you ever had to advise on, surface that up here and share that with us. But otherwise, I'd ask you, like, you're in London. You're in an excellent seat to be around so many wine regions. Where have your travels taken you, and have those influenced what your preferred varietals, or kinds of wine are?
Oh, good question. The second part of the question is a little bit of a twist. Yes, so very lucky to be living in London, where it's so close to all European countries, to visit wine regions. I was very lucky to go to North Italy, to the Nebbiolo region, Barbera, Barbaresco. I went to Champagne, and I've tried some really, really amazing champagnes there. I went to Portugal, to Porto, and I've tried some really amazing port. And I think that also changed for me, because I never had that love for sweet wine / port. But then combined with the culture there in Porto, it was like a transformative experience in a way, because it could be enjoyed for, a glass of port could be enjoyed with your pasta de nata, for €2 for a set, or you could have a really nice glass of port after your dinner at a restaurant for €10. So it was a great experience, and the absolutely beautiful scenery, the landscape, absolutely stunning. And we went there in the about summertime. So it was definitely one of my favorite wine trips there. Yeah.
And so as a result, what are some of the varietals or wines that you, and it all changes according to the seasons and years and so forth. They come and go. But what's it like to be you right now, thinking about the wines that you are, you would want to open this weekend?
Oh, I mean,
what's in your fridge, Magda? That's what we're asking. What's in your fridge?
Yeah. I mean, I have a variety. We went on the trip to Canada, my partner and I. So we brought a few wines with us back. A couple Canadian wines, a couple from the US. But we brought some wine back, so I've got some of those. But it's, I mean, my go-to is a Bordeaux, a very cliche Bordeaux. Saint-Julien is my absolute favorite village in Bordeaux, and it just the flavor profile, it has been really gracious for me in the past.
Is that the left bank? Is that more Merlot, or is that Cab forward? I think it's Merlot.
It's left bank. Yeah, it's more it's more Merlot. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, let me just fix my laptop, because it doesn't seem like it's taking battery.
Oh, good. So, okay, great. We know your heart song here in terms of wine. And whoa, goodbye. We interrupt this recording. Okay.
I've got it. Sorry.
So
yeah.
We're just gonna cut that out. We're gonna cut it out.
Okay.
So we'll start with the fact that, so thank you for revealing your wine love song in the Saint-Julien region of Bordeaux. That's awesome. I think this has been a lovely conversation, and I can't thank you enough, Magda, for spending the time with us. I know that I'll ask you a couple more questions. I know that you're creating a wine course that's in development, and we want to make sure that for those, until it's released, I'm sure to get little nuggets in progress. they should visit Wine Down Magda with underscores in between each word. So wine underscore down underscore with underscore Magda. That is your Instagram. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, and I think it's wonderful that you would share this knowledge as a sommelier now 7 years, post, certification, who's still committed to a lifelong learning, as we all should be. You're giving back with a particular wine course meant to help people on board, regardless of their age, this ability to really make a better decision, than to be marketed to and just literally in a marketing way coerced into a decision about what is the most available at the end of the aisle or being splashed at you. We can do better. So I encourage everybody who's on that journey to educate others so that they're not falling victim to marketing ploys and furry animals on labels and various ways of short-circuiting logic. If you and I were in an empty aisle, this is a trick question. If we were in an empty aisle in a store, what are some of the ways? What are the three things you could think of to help people make a good decision faced with, no one else around at the moment at a store?
Are we in a wine shop or are we at a supermarket?
We're in a wine. Oh, that's a good question. And that's the trick question, because if you're in a grocery store, the answer is you're in the wrong place to be making a decision, right? So take 2 steps back, go find a wine shop. So let's say we're at the wine shop. So yes, you've seen through my ruse. You have correctly identified that you're at a dead end, folks. Get out of the grocery store. There's nothing good that's going to help you there. And go now so now we're in a wine shop, SHOPPE.
Mm-hmm.
How am I making a decision?
I think it can be really overwhelming when you step into a wine shop, especially when it's a smaller wine shop and all the shelves are filled with wine, label to label, and there's just so much there's so much variety. Every single bottle is different. It's not like this batch is the same. Right. It's so much variety. So it is really, really useful to have a starting point of what you like, what kind of wine you like, or what region you like. I prefer to go into a type of wine and the flavor profile of a wine rather than a specific region that you would like, because then you will be more flexible, and maybe that wine shop doesn't have that region. So what do you do then? You're not starting from scratch. You have that base of what is something that you like, that you prefer, because wine is a preference. Everyone has a different experience with the same wine, or can have a different experience with the same wine. So I think as a foundation, as a basis, this is really important. And when it comes to other kind of tips on,
sure, go ahead.
On how to select a wine, and there was no one inside. Yes, it's quite difficult for me to put myself in these shoes, because I imagine myself in the shop and I look at the wine through a different lens, through a lens of a person who has an idea already, like, oh, if it's Italian from Puglia, it's going to be that kind of flavor profile, or and if someone's looking for a full-bodied, robust, beautiful wine, they might go for a strong Nebbiolo, or maybe they prefer a Cabernet Sauvignon, but they only know exactly. So, but they would be like, oh no, but it's a US wine. Well, no, you can find Cabernet Sauvignon in other regions as well.
Right.
So
I think but you're answering the question really. If you come at it with what you want to describe, if you can describe what you want from the wine, Then in an empty aisle, yes, you're still kind of, but I think, part of this is if you're in a wine shop, don't be afraid to ask. This is like going to the butcher, at a counter, or this is like going to a fishmonger. So, if you're out of the grocery store where we know there's no one there to help, if you're at a shop, you got to wait a turn, find the owner, but now you have a conversation and you've helped them help you by knowing, as you said, this is what I'm looking for flavor profile wise. And the region is a little bit irrelevant. Take me on a ride, and
Yes,
let's see where we land.
And I think they will be more than happy because they have a business. So people like that, they live for those customers who come in and they
of course.
like advice. So
Exactly.
it can be a really great conversation to have as well.
Does that extend in a restaurant, or is it any different?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think definitely. Depends on the on the night. Because if you're going there to the restaurant and it's a really nice chill vibe, take the sommelier, use them, abuse them, pick their brains, talk about wine. They will sit down with you and go through wine with you, and what you'd like to have and what you shouldn't have with your meal, based on what you chose. But if it's a super busy night, it's probably not gonna happen, understandably. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. It's just like like the waiter reading the table. You also have to read the restaurant. If it's a busy night, you're not going to get the time to really. But if it's a slow night, and moreover, if you are able to talk to the sommelier themselves and just say, look, I could make a choice here and be happy with it. But if you have the time and if you're inclined to hear me, it also depends on your agenda. If I'm there for a business development meeting or I'm there to close a particular sale, I have to have the blinders on. I'm there for the ambiance, the experience, and outer distractions must be minimized. I'm here to actually establish a deeper relationship with the target, the relationship I'm building to reach a business end. Okay. If it's friends night out, if it's, a place where things can drag, where dinner is the evening, right? Instead of dinner and then an evening out. No. Dinner is the evening. Let's slow roll this. Then you'd be able to say, I can make a choice here. Or you can, what I love to do is my own personal way at a restaurant is find the most esoteric thing that I can find. At least either, if I know it, I'll start there. And what do I mean by that? I mean that, most German wines are white in nature. But when I find something that stands out like a Pinot from Germany or from Austria, I will zero in on that and say, a red wine from Germany it's not chosen unless it's intentional. And I'm trying to read the mind of someone who would pick these wines. Why would they pick them? If I see wines that I can find in the grocery store, if I find, God forbid, they have commercials and so forth, then I know that this is a marketing-driven wine list. Pay no attention. Perhaps the beers will be nice, or I'll stick with water tonight. But no, if I'm looking for personality and quirks and the little things that in Albarino, it does take a little bit more knowledge of wine varietals and such. But I'm telling our audience now, if you don't know these, but you can pick the thing that you don't recognize in the slightest and say, then you'll have the small oh wow, I chose that and it's interesting that you chose that. And then they're engaged with you because you've picked out something that isn't what they've been more forced to put on and that they know is going to be the common denominator choice among many of the patrons. You're at least signaling to the sommelier, hey, I'm interested and I found this quirky thing. What do you think? And they're like,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Magda, we'll wrap up here. You're in London. If for those, who have the good fortune to be able to travel and come to London town, I want two recommendations. I want the one with the fancy, tablecloth and metaphorically, and then the one that doesn't have, the fancy tablecloth where you might see, shift workers to just regular, average Joes, or Jones eating. Yeah. Guide us, tell us where to go in London.
Yeah. I will take the tablecloth as quote unquote, Because in London, I noticed even the higher end places don't necessarily go for that style. But I have to call out Chiltern Firehouse because the
What's
wine list is exceptional.
what's it called?
It's called the Chiltern Firehouse.
The Sheltered Firehouse.
Chiltern. It's
Spell that.
You haven't heard of it, David. Yes, it's like children, but it's with a T. Chiltern. It's similar word to children. It's called after its street. So it's on Chiltern Street, and it used to be a fire brigade house. So it's been converted to a hotel with a restaurant and a bar. And
Whoa.
yes, the wine list is really, really good. Definitely recommend. The kind of middle shelf, I need to say this, NobleRot.
I've heard of
NobleRot is
NobleRot, yeah.
Oh, it is my go-to, after work on a Thursday evening to have a little glass of beautiful Pinot Noir that they do with a caravan. So, it's nicer quality, and I don't have to get a bottle, and it's just me, so I wouldn't, and so one glass is just perfect to finish evening. And lastly, because
Oh,
also I've got a good wine list,
yes.
Brunswick House in
Br-
Vauxhall in London.
like Brunswick stew, Brunswick House?
Like Brunswick House. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Brunswick
I haven't heard
House.
of this too, but yes, the Brunswick House. And the wine list is in majority natural wines,
Ooh,
but natural and biodynamic wines, but there are
ooh.
quite a few classic ones, and the prices are really, really good. A very good deal.
Okay, we like it. So there we go. Those are going to make the list and be part of the write-up here. Magda, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge, and having this very engaging and enjoyable conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and it was blessed. Thanks, David.
Merci.